Welcome to Python My Way. Here we'll be talking about 3 common ways of running Python code and why you might use each of them. These are the Python REPL, running a Python script, and using a Jupyter Notebook. We're going to go over how to use each of these in your local development setup, and at the end, look at all 3 methods running in the browser. Starting with the REPL, we need a command line or terminal that has access to Python. So in my case, I'll be using git bash, and I'm on Windows. On most systems, you can just type Python and hit enter, but on some systems, you have to add -i for interactive. So the REPL provides us with these 3 arrows to tell us we can enter any Python code we want. For example, let's concatenate 2 strings. When we hit enter, after writing some code, Python will interpret and run that code and print out the results. So we can also save variables, just like writing a normal Python script, and do things like call functions on those variables. So the REPL is good for running small snippets of code and maybe an experiment that you don't quite know what the answer will be. So maybe you forget what happens when you multiply a string by an integer. And then you can type this into the REPL and realize, oh right, it repeats the string X amount of times. To get out of the REPL, all we have to do is type exit, parentheses, or quit, and parentheses. So that's the simplest way of running Python code, but it's not going to be the greatest for saving your work or using any code editor features. So the next way is running a Python script. Now in order to do this, we'll need a file ending with .py. So I have one in this folder, Python demo, and we'll open it up with Notepad just to check it out. So this is a pretty straightforward script that has a function that returns a greeting, and it prints out the result of that function on a name. So if we run this script as it is, the way to do that is to make sure that we're in the folder that has the script. So we'll change directory into this Python demo folder and type Python space and then test.py, the name of the script. In this case, we print out hello there Monty, which is the default name that's provided in the script. Now, if you're paying attention to what this sys module is doing in here, you can tell that we're going to set name differently if we have more than one argument, more than one argv. What this argv means is all of the things that come after the word Python. So test.py is technically the first argument, and we can provide something like new name as the second argument, which will change our script's behavior with this command line argument to print out that new name. So running Python scripts like this, saving your file, and then running Python and then your script name is really common from beginners all the way through advanced and production use cases. This will even be able to let you automate tasks and things like that. So don't be afraid if this is kind of the one thing that you want to try and stick with. It's a very good way of running code and very common. But the last one we want to check out is very common in data science and a lot of education use cases, and it's called the Jupyter Notebook. So in order to use Jupyter Notebooks, we need to make sure that we pip install notebook. And if you already have this downloaded, pip will just provide you with some warning messages like that, and we can run this with Jupyter space notebook. Now what this command does is actually run a web server in your terminal, and it opens up your browser. And if it doesn't automatically open up your browser, you should have a link in here to click on or copy. So to open an actual notebook, here we're just in Jupyter, we'll go to New and Python 3, IPyKernel. So code in notebooks is broken up into cells. So if I want to do something that I was doing in the REPL session, I could do something like x equals 1, y equals 2, and then run that code. As we can see, nothing really happens. But what if I type x plus y and then choose run? In this case, we get an output, and that output is 3, x plus y. So the fun thing about Jupyter Notebooks is that we can actually change the contents of our script of different cells, and that will affect other things in our script. It's a live coding environment. The one thing to make sure, though, is that you actually rerun each cell. So in this case, if I click on my x plus y cell and choose run, we get 3 again. But if I run my x equals 1, y equals 3 cell, and then my x plus y cell, we get 4. So with Jupyter Notebooks, these are, again, really popular in the data science and education spaces because you can run small experiments like this, and they have a lot of great features for displaying images and graphics and graphs and things like that. So as promised, we're going to look at all 3 of these methods running in the browser with no setup. So the first of these is, or the first 2 of these actually, are going to be from futurecoder.io. And with this kind of intro course, we're going to go to introducing the shell. So this is an open source project. It's hosted on GitHub, and it runs using a package called Pyodide to get Python running in your browser. So just like we were able to run in Git Bash, sorry, this is taken up by Jupyter right now, we're able to run the same Python commands, the same Python code in this online REPL, which I think is really great. Furthermore, if you follow kind of through this tutorial, you'll make it down to this writing programs section, where there's actually a small code editor, which has examples on the left, which we'll follow along with, where we'll say hello, world, and print word plus a space plus the name, change the value of word, and then print word plus a space plus the name again. And so just like we were writing a Python script in our file and then running the code with Python and the script name, we can type our code out in this online text editor and hit the run button to run the code down here. Lastly, we're going to look at starboard.gg, which also uses Pyodide to provide Jupyter Notebooks in the browser. So with running Jupyter Notebooks in the browser, we can also run JavaScript code, HTML code, and Markdown code all in this one website, which is pretty impressive if you're kind of learning all those different things and want to experiment with it. But if you just want to get that kind of no download, no install experience of running a Python notebook, you can do that with this. And we can even kind of run some pretty advanced things, such as like downloading data sets and kind of viewing the results. So I hope that this was a good overview of kind of those common ways of running Python code.